Any questions? Yes.
Yes, Father. Just you were saying that, like with Archbishop Lefebvre, again, he was because he wants to be able to submit to the Catholic Church. He says, well, the 62 Missal is the missal that's
Still Catholic.
yes. But there again, would somebody maybe not be able to argue? Well, then he's making his choice. Why did he say then? Like where was his decision made, or is it because it was so blatant that the 69 was just way out left field?
Yes. Yes. 69, just as, well, there's a parallel which is an apparent parallel, that quo primum comes after the Council of Trent. The new Mass comes after Vatican II. Okay? There's a certain parallel, okay? However, it's completely different in the mentality and in the results. And yes, I mean, the new Mass follows the modernist teaching of Vatican II. The old Mass follows the Catholic teaching of Council of Trent. So it's completely, when you look at the new Mass, I mean, Cardinal Ottaviani said, it departs from in a striking manner from the Catholic teaching of the Church. So it's completely a different ballgame. Here we're talking about rubrics, 62 compared to, say, 1910. We're talking about rubrics. I say, well, but what? The Catholic mind is always, what does the Church want? That's a Catholic mind. Because that's our faith. Yes. Okay.
And St. Pope John the 23rd, so up until Vatican II, he came in before Vatican II.
Correct.
So if he changed the rubrics before Vatican II, we are following that.
And as I said, he changed the rubrics because actually he just promulgated the work of Pius XII.
Yes.
So he simplified a number of things, okay? But again, this kind of simplification had taken place also in the past. Pius X did the same at a different level, did not do the same thing, but something similar in 1911. So, and the Archbishop says, well, yeah, he's the Pope. Now we've 40 years of objecting to what is happening in Rome. We have to remember that we must, accept what is good that comes from Rome. We are Catholic, or else we become Protestant. That everybody becomes his own judge of the faith. Well, we all going to judge different. Look at the resistance. Look at the city of Acanthus. They all claim to know better, and they're all split like Protestants.
I think part of that would be a conundrum, though. If you subscribe to ideology that's not Catholic anymore, there must be some negative outcome there. Like,
Explain.
Rome is not Catholic anymore.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Okay, but we're not accepting what comes from Rome now, Pope Francis, okay, or John Paul II, okay. Nevertheless, we recognize them as Pope, okay. But the issue, for example, with the resistance or the city of Acanthus is they don't want or not all, some of them do, okay. The 62, they don't accept the 55 reforms because Bungini was involved, but that's under Pius XII. So who's going to decide where you're going to go back?
So therein lies the solution, though, a consensus on how to bring it back.
But there's no consensus, and that's the issue. The consensus, and actually even the Vatican, in a certain way, agree, with Archbishop Lefebvre, that the books of traditions, the last official books of tradition are 1962 books. That's what Benedict said, okay? The Missal of John the 23rd. That's the last edition of traditional Mass. And it's a It's day and night with the new Mass, but that is the last Pope.
So, could you encapsulate what your view of returning to tradition would involve?
What is happening now in the Vatican, of course, it's Cardinal Ranjit, who's a cardinal in Sri Lanka. He said, well, again, time will tell, but if a new pope came now, suppose that Francis dies and Bishop Fellay is elected pope, okay? Or a good bishop, okay? A good pope. To say, the new Mass is going to the bin overnight would probably not work, okay? Because the Pope, he wants to save the whole church, okay? There'll probably be some steps towards that, okay? There has been, sorry?
Isn't that what Pope Pius V did though?
Yes, although it was definitely not like it is today, okay? Because they still had a traditional Mass. It was tampered with, but it was still traditional Mass. Now it's a complete different Mass. They've changed the churches. They've changed everything, okay? So, I'm not sure. If I became Pope, I don't know what I would do, okay? Okay? Okay. But, for example, because just think even on the point of logistics. If you say tomorrow, okay, like Pope Pius V said, at the end of this month, so on January 1st, 2019, everybody must take the traditional Mass, okay? Half the clergy, 3/4 of the clergy does not know Latin, okay? Most of the churches have been destroyed with Novus Ordo altars. The sanctuaries have all been destroyed. So, because you have to remember, what's your goal? Your goal is that everybody says traditional Mass, okay? So if you impose it in the wrong way, too fast, too strong, too soon, they're not going to do it, and then you've lost your point. If you go gradually, everybody will take the Roman canon, for example. Then everybody's going to take the Roman offertory. And maybe let's start in vernacular, perhaps. I'm just thinking out loud, okay? Start saying the traditional Mass in English to get used to the rubrics and the prayers. And then in 1 year we switch to Latin. At least you know how it works. And it gives you 1 year to brush up your Latin. Okay? The result is that everybody goes to traditional Mass. How to get there is going to be an act of prudence of the Pope. I don't know what he's going to do. Or maybe there's going to be such a change in the church that it might happen quicker than we think. But it's messy right now. I give you an example. Cardinal Ranjit, because I met him a few times in Sri Lanka. He wanted to say a traditional Mass, a pontifical traditional Mass. Anyway, he never did it. But he told me one time, he says, he said, what my problem... That's in Sri Lanka, the Diocese of Colombo, which I think is the largest diocese in the world, with 460 priests, something like this, or one, at least in Asia. So what my problem is with my priests, he told me, is to get them to wear the stole underneath the chasuble. He said, that's my problem with my priest. Because in the Novus Ordo, so they have these Taizé stole, these Protestant type stole with pointed back, okay, which are made to eventually be used without a chasuble. It's Protestant. We're heading towards Protestantism. And Cardinal told me, my problem is just to get them to dress properly for the new Mass. They don't wear amice anymore. The first thing the priest puts on, okay? So, and he told me, I've ordered 300 stoles from the Philippines for my priest? Can you just dress properly just for Mass? Imagine if you were to say, from tomorrow start saying the old Mass. Nobody's going to do it. Or maybe 10% will do it. So, it's a question of strategy. You want to win the war, or you just want to win a battle? And that's prudence. That's the virtue of the chief, you know. So, it's difficult. I mean, it's difficult. Questions?
You mentioned the Council of Trent was completed in 1563.
Correct.
How long did it take to do it, to start?
18 years, the Council of Trent, 45 to 63. But you have to understand, during these 18 years, they had something like 23 or 24 sessions. They would have a meeting for 1 month, 2 months, and then they might not meet for 5 years because there was war in Europe. And the Pope would send a letter, listen, we need to continue, we haven't finished yet. So next July, everybody come to Trent and we finish. We'll continue. We'll do baptism, we do confession, we do marriage, we'll do the different sacrament. The Mass, the session on the Mass is the 22nd session. So that was probably in the late 50s. Okay. So you have to understand also the logistic of the time.
So it's curious, 1500s, so there's no phones, it's communication, or someone can't send a copy to me, via the fax.
I mean, I'm sending you a letter. You'll be receiving the letter 3 months after the whole thing is over, because the mailman died on the way. So.
Father, if you, as a sidebar, if you decide to throw your hat in, I think most of us will vote for you.
Thank you, Clem. Thank you very much. But I'll say no anyway. I'll say it because.
I'll say it in French, you will understand. Le Conseil des évêques, ça pose problème.
Conseil dans quel sens?
C'est
La conférence des évêques. Conférence.
Okay,
The Bishops' Conferences.
pose problème parce que là, l'autorité déléguée du pape vers ces choses-là, et puis ils peuvent décider entre eux de ne pas suivre le pape dans une réforme.
So,
C'est un réel danger.
so the Bishops' Conferences is now a new artificial layer in the structure of the church. And it is a problem. That's collegiality. That's a problem of Vatican II. And like Mr. Lessard is saying, if the Pope says something, Bishops' Conference can block, and they're doing it right now. With Benedict, the question of marriages and SSPX, okay? Where the Pope is telling the bishops, give SSPX jurisdiction for their marriages. You have whole countries that are blocking it. Poland, Germany, countries like that, okay? So, it's a democracy, and you can have a woman's secretary who dictates to all the bishops. Because they might vote, but somebody will prepare a text, and then she can write a text, give it to the bishop, you give that to the other bishops, and let's vote on this. So, but who prepared the text, So, the first document of Vatican II was the one on the liturgy, Sacrosanctum Concilium. It's very easy to remember that. Article 22.2, which it ties in with exactly what we're talking about. That was a revolution in all the history of the liturgy. 22.2 says local bishop can legislate on liturgical matters. Until Vatican II, until 1963, it's Rome that legislates. Rome decides for the universal church how we're going to worship. But 22.2 says, Rome says this, but the local bishop has authority in his own territory to do otherwise. And so it's called the adaptation or inculturation. And that was the destruction of the principle of unity in liturgy. That goes against Pius V directly.
Okay, who actually drafted that paragraph? Because it seems to me that if you wanted to destroy the church, that would be a good way to go about it.
Good point. Okay, who drafted it? One can find out. I don't know exactly, but one of the key things, and unfortunately Francis goes into this way as well, this collegiality is to decentralize the government of the church. And by decentralizing it, that is an attack against papacy. Because, as you can hear, the way these popes are talking, I'm the pope, this is going to be the way you do things in the church. Now is, well, it'd be nice if you do that, but I leave it up to you. It's a destruction of the central authority of the church. And that's why, even this 22.2 of the Sacrosanctum Concilium is an attack against papacy. And who has seen the movie Vatican Deception? Okay. The Vatican Deception, it's interesting there, that's something I did not realize, but collegiality was an attack against the papacy in the sense that if the Pope asked the consecration of Russia, you have whole countries of bishops who might say, no, we're not doing it here. And that's bad. That's bad.
Did you hear that Putin did ask the Pope to consecrate Russia?
I'm searching on this one, okay, from the Fatima Center. I haven't had an answer yet, okay. But that comes from Father Kramer, okay. He says that in the movie. So the story goes like this. Putin was going to see the Pope, Pope Francis. And before meeting the Pope, he sent some of his people to Father Gruner to ask him, because he had heard about Fatima. Somebody told him there's something to do with Russia. Find out. And it was the Fatima Center. And they told exactly what was supposed to be done by the Pope. And when Putin met the Pope, then he asked for the consecration of Russia. And the Pope said no, which is ironic. Now, the source for that story is Father Paul Kramer, who has now gone sedevacantist, okay? So I'm trying to look into that. I asked some of our faithful in Toronto who are involved in the Vatican, in the Fatima Center, but I haven't had an answer yet. You're supposed to look into that, because that's where it comes from, Father Kramer.